Welcome everyone to the Electric Coaches channel. The discussion concerning boiled bases is still raging on in the electric football community. And the board of directors of the Miniature Football Coaches Association are still working with trying to build a rule set that will allow boiled bases to be used in tournament and league play. I'm still working with this base that you see here on the Maurkice Pouncey figure. This base was boiled back in June of 2014. The base you see here on this figure is an older boiled base that I've been working with as well. Basically, I'm matching that base up against the Maurkice Pouncey figure. And I've noticed some things with this base. By the way, I've done something to this base to get it to perform, and I'll get into that momentarily. Let's watch what happens. Maurkice Pouncey base is losing the battle for the line of scrimmage. Let's turn them around real quick. See what we get. It slipped off, so I'll set them up again. See what we have here. One more time. Okay, as you can see, the Maurkice Pouncey figure is losing to this other base. This base came from the pile of bases that you see on the right of your screen. These bases were boiled years ago. They couldn't compete against the new and fresh boiled base on the Maurkice Pouncey figure back in June. But like I said, like you just saw, this base right here is competing against the Maurkice Pouncey figure. And I'm going to show you what I did to get this base to match up. What you're looking at is a jar of brake fluid. This brake fluid that's in this jar is a .34. That's the rating for that brake fluid. It's clear, so it's hard to kind of see it in the camera. But if you look closely, I have a base floating in that brake fluid. And the figure that you see here, this was the figure that was competing against the Maurkice Pouncey figure. That's the older base that pretty much beat Maurkice Pouncey at the line of scrimmage. This base soaked in this brake fluid for 24 hours. So I have another base in this fluid as well. This base has been floating, has been soaking in this brake fluid for overnight, basically. So that's what I did to get this base to compete. If you look at the right side of your screen, I have another brake fluid. This brake fluid is .5 brake fluid. I have two bases soaking in it as well. The Total Team Control base that I have soaking in this brake fluid has been soaking now for 6 days. I put this base in the fluid on July 4th. It's July 10th now. So for 6 days, that base has been soaking. And that base also came from that pile of older boiled bases that you had seen earlier. Later, we're going to rinse this base off that's been soaking in this .5 brake fluid. Now the difference between .5 brake fluid and .3 and 4 is that the .5 brake fluid has a silicone additive. So I want to test that base out. This base here that's in this fluid. We're going to match that base up against the Marquise Pouncey bass, as well as match it up against the bass that you saw earlier, the older bass that beat Marquise Pouncey. This bass was soaked in the DOT 3 and 4 fluid. Before we move on, I want to test another one of these basses from this pile. I'm going to grab a random bass here, and we're going to match this bass up against the Marquise Pouncey figure. So we're going to take this bass off that we know is matching up well against Marquise Pouncey. We're going to set that bass off to the sidelines here, and we're going to take this bass that came from the pile over here just now, and we're going to match it up against the Marquise Pouncey figure. Let's see what happens. Okay, it appears that the Marquise Pouncey figure is winning. Line them up again. Okay, so as you can see, this older boiled bass doesn't match up well against this freshly boiled bass that the Marquise Pouncey figure is on. So we're going to move this bass back to the pile. We're going to go back to our sidelines, and we're going to bring back the bass that we know is competing well against the Marquise Pouncey figure. Okay, I've now rinsed the bass that was soaking in the DOT 5 brake fluid, and it's this bass here that you see on the right. The bass that's on the left was soaked in DOT 3-4 brake fluid. Both of these basses are frosty basses. The bass that was soaked in DOT 5 brake fluid is purple in color, and the frosty bass had absorbed the brake fluid, and it took on the color of the brake fluid. That's why this bass is now darker. So if you saw this bass live, it would have a purplish blue type of color. That bass, this DOT 5 bass, we're going to mount that bass on the Olinata figure, and we're going to match this figure with that DOT 5 bass against the Marquise Pouncey figure, as well as this bass that was soaked in DOT 3-4 brake fluid. We are now ready to match up the basses that we soaked in the brake fluid. The Olinata figure, its bass was soaked in DOT 5 brake fluid. And this figure here, its bass was soaked in DOT 3-4 brake fluid. And we have Marquise Pouncey waiting to match up against the Olinata figure on DOT 5 brake fluid. So we're going to get started. Let's see what happens. Okay, slipped off a bit, so let's make sure we got our bases adjusted properly here. Okay, set them up again, see what happens. Okay, it appears that Olinata is dominating the line of scrimmage. Let's set them up again, see what happens. Olinata is winning the pushing battle big time. So let's make sure, let's sweep our prongs back on our DOT 3-4 brake fluid base. Match them up again. See what happens. Okay. Olinata appears to be winning still. But DOT 3-4 base is holding its ground. Okay, so without further ado, let's bring in Marquise Pouncey. Going to match him up against the Olinata figure. And remember, this base that was on Marquise Pouncey was boiled in water, baby oil, and mineral oil. Nothing else was done to it after that. Okay? The base on the Olinata figure and this figure, a long time ago, they were boiled in water, baby oil, and mineral oil. But these bases were recently taken a step further. They were soaked in brake fluid. So now we're going to match up Marquise Pouncey and Olinata. See what happens. It appears that Olinata is winning the battle at the line of scrimmage. Okay, so what you've just witnessed was a boiled base being defeated by another boiled base that's been soaked in brake fluid. I want to run this drill again between these two figures, Marquise Pouncey and Olinata. I want to make sure that we're getting a sound reading here, because I've allowed some more time to go by to allow the base on Olinata to dry a little bit. You know, after I rinsed it, it was dry, but I wanted to make sure it was actually dry. I pulled the dowel from the base and patted it off with a paper towel. So let's run this drill again. Let's see what happens. Okay, Olinata's still winning. Turn him around a bit. Let's go again. Without a doubt, the DOT-5 brake fluid base is winning. Okay, we're going to bring in the DOT-3-4 base. Okay, match them up. DOT-3-4 brake fluid base is winning. Still winning. Okay, so let's match up both brake fluid bases. See what we get. DOT-3-4 appears to be winning over the DOT-3-5 base. Okay, let's take a DOT-3-5 base and let's sweep back the prongs. Okay, line them up again. Okay, the DOT-3-4 base is still winning. But at any rate, both of these brake fluid bases are defeating the Marquise Pouncey base. Remember, these brake fluid bases were also boiled in baby oil and mineral oil, just like the Marquise Pouncey base. But the difference is these bases here were soaked in brake fluid. So after watching this video, some of you are probably sitting back saying, well, Mo, what are you telling us? Are you telling us that we shouldn't boil bases at all? Should we just continue to ban boiled bases or any other kind of chemically treated base? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying no, you should do that. What I'm saying is that boiled bases and chemically treated bases can be used in tournament and league play, provided that everybody abides by the rules. Yes, to the people outside of this hobby, there are people who will cheat at this game. And one of the ways that you can cheat, I just showed you today. Here you have on the Marquise Pouncey figure a base that was boiled only in water, mineral oil, and baby oil. This base was boiled in mineral oil and baby oil as well, but it was also soaked in brake fluid. Let me move the Olinata figure over for a moment. I'm going to lay these two figures down. Both of these bases are frosty bases. As you look at them, if I didn't tell you what I had done to these bases, both of these bases are the same. They look alike, don't they? But as you already know, the base that was on this figure was not only boiled, it was soaked in brake fluid. So let's say your rule set of your tournament says boiled bases are allowed. The only base you can have that's boiled, that base can only be boiled in baby oil, mineral oil, and water. You must stop there. But let's say you got a coach who wants to cut corners. He wants to cheat. He'll boil his base in mineral oil, baby oil, and mineral oil like the rule set says. But he'll soak his base as well in the .34 brake fluid, which is clear. That clear brake fluid will not show up on the base, as you can see here. So when you bring this coach comes into the tournament, you guys match up on the table, and you're playing with just your typical boiled base against his brake fluid base. Your boiled base is getting pushed off the line of scrimmage. That coach that's using his base, that coach that soaked his base in their brake fluid, he is cheating. Because the rule set clearly stated, just from my example, the rule set clearly stated the base can only be boiled in water, mineral oil, and baby oil. Nothing else. Now, if you look at the Olinada figure, remember the .5 brake fluid? That brake fluid is purple. So that purple brake fluid turned this frosty base, which used to look like this base, it turned it dark. So you can see, if you saw this base in person, you would see the purple haze that's on the surface of the plastic. So this base can't be used to cheat, because it's going to show up. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. So this video is geared toward showing you the boiling process, which I have shown you earlier in the base boiling video. Right? This video is also geared toward showing you the differences of a boiled base compared to a chemically treated base, and how somebody could cut corners and cheat against you. So I hope that you will take this information that you saw in this video and use it to your advantage, and use it to have a good time in your league or tournament or your solitaire play. I'm Mo. Thanks for watching.